Hi, my name is Ashley Story, and I am a student at the University of Missouri. I am currently in the Learning Systems Design and Development graduate program. Today I'm going to tell you about my 20% project. My 20% project is a literature review, and ultimately with it I'm trying to answer the question, how can computer-supported collaborative learning be effectively implemented in post-secondary institutions? So that is the purpose. I'm looking to answer this question. And in order to answer that question, I have to do some research. Obviously, I have to read some literature. And I guess one of the things I'd like to talk about is my audience and why it's relevant. So when I was researching this, I tried to do it from the point of view of an instructor. So why do good implementation practices of computer-supported collaborative learning matter to an instructor? And specifically, people outside of this discipline. So if I can take my research and put it in a layman's terms, so to speak, and an instructor can use that in order to guide their practice, that was my ultimate goal. So for, let's say, a world history professor to be able to read this paper and really think about how they can more effectively apply some collaborative learning strategies online with their students. And maybe not necessarily giving them all the answers, but at least provoking the thought of how can I make this more effective? How can the student's learning product have a better outcome, or how can I promote higher level collaboration? So I really wanted my audience to think about that. Why is this topic relevant to my career? It's relevant to my career because ultimately I do want to be employed in an institution of higher education. I could definitely see myself designing courses with subject matter experts and just advising professors and instructors on how to best implement the tools that distance education has to offer. For my process, I read several articles. I actually have a big stack right here. And I went through and I tried to find 3 of the most relevant studies that I felt would help me answer the question of how can computer-supported collaborative learning be most effectively implemented. And I came up with a couple of recurring themes. The first thing was I kept reading this word transactivity, and so I had to go and I had to define that for myself. And I kept reading the phrase temporal synchronicity. So I had to go and I had to define that for myself. And I found that temporal synchronicity, which is actually just means that you are engaging with someone in real time, is a component of collaborative learning on computers. And I also found that transactivity simply meant building on each other's ideas. And those are things that I didn't know there were names for that. I thought that those were things that automatically happened in distance education courses. And so I had to put a name to those things. And then I realized that people actually took these components and studied them individually and how they contribute to student learning outcomes. So I mainly focused on a study that researched how both of them interplay, and I was really surprised at the results. I thought that transactivity and temporal synchronicity would both, that they would show obvious positive, like positive results in the student learning outcome, but it turns out that even when levels of transactivity were lower, students generally still tended to get their good grades. And so that was kind of surprising to me. However, I don't think that you can totally discount either one of those aspects simply because it wasn't able to be totally proven with this study. And I also did some research on scripting. That was a concept that was a little fuzzy to me at the beginning. So I did some research on that, and I think that it is my opinion that the research proves that scripting can be beneficial for students. Teachers, instructors just have to know at what level of support their students need. And so ultimately, I took this research, I summarized it the best that I could, and I tried to close up the paper with some potential strategies for best implementation practices. And so one thing I said was that different levels of scripting, like I just said, can positively impact the learning process. And I also said that working in real time, that temporal synchronicity can actually increase those transactive discussions. And since a lot of students learn very well from debating and building on each other's ideas, that's something that professors should keep in mind. So I learned a lot about the setting that I would ultimately like to work in one day. And I definitely think that this was probably the most informational part of the class for me. Thank you.